Listening to the One Man Show Network. Welcome to the MMA Fight Picks Podcast with your host, Aaron Weinbaum.
Hey everyone, welcome to the MMA Fight Picks Podcast. I am your host, Aaron Weinbaum, and today I'm just going to recap a few fights. I think we got new ones for next week, UFC May 30th, I believe. It could be Tyron Woodley and Gilbert Burns. If you are on the Periscope, hopefully comments are working this week, so feel free to chime in, crack wise, ask questions, whatever it is you want to do. Thanks for the hearts already, and I will certainly answer any questions. If I don't get them right away, I'll see them in the comment box, and then I will get to them then. But first things first, UFC 249. I'm going to start from the bottom of the card and work my way up on some of the fights I did pick. I did pick Bryce Mitchell to beat Charles Rosa. I didn't know he'd go for 100 twisters. Oh my gosh, look at these hearts. This is wonderful. Thank you. That was impressive. I think this is Bryce Mitchell's time. Vicente Luque versus Nico Price. That was a rematch. Vicente wins again. I thought Carla Esparza looked good against Michelle Watterson. Carla is working her way right up there, back into contention. And it's weird that we're going to go back to this Claudia Gadelha fight. Why wouldn't she go back to like Joanna Jędrzejczyk and do that fight? Of course, we had Alexia Oleinik and Fabricio Werdum. That one went about like I thought it would. Fabricio's off the stuff. Allegedly, he was on the stuff. I don't know. But he certainly looked like he had granddad bod, and Oleinik clearly won that. I'm not all about the split decision on that, but Alexia Oleinik for sure won that fight. And then Anthony Pettis, Donald Cerrone. Donald looked better than I thought he would. They said he got robbed too, but I couldn't really tell who won that fight. Greg Hardy, Yorgan De Castro. I mean, jeez. Yorgan looked good that first round. Greg Hardy, he just persevered. Apparently he was listening to Daniel Cormier's commentary, but I just wish they'd put him against a real fighter. They just did, and it was Volkov, I believe, but I don't know. They're trying to build this guy up for some reason. Calvin Guitar, Jeremy Stevens, I did think Calvin would win that fight. I didn't think Jeremy would miss weight, but I'm not surprised that more of that isn't happening, because of facilities. And then Ngannou Rozenstruik went exactly like I thought as well. I wish I would have bet on this card now, because as much as I like Rozenstruik, I saw Ngannou coming in there and just taking him out. You can't trade like he did with Alistair and not get put out by Ngannou. And gosh dang, I mean, lightning struck. I don't know where Rozenstruik goes from here. Maybe a fight with like Curtis Blades or somewhere. And then Henry Cejudo, Dominic Cruz. I think Cejudo retired at the end of the fight, and then he unretired. I'm not really sure, but Henry I thought would win that fight. Was it an early stoppage? I'm not the guy to say. And I did think Gaethje would beat Ferguson, and I'm going to tell you why. I told you why a few weeks ago when I picked that fight, but here's the thing. It's Henry's time anyway. Not Henry. I mean, it's Justin's time anyway, I think. He just got that style. As long as he's patient, he's going to get you. And he was patient, very, very patient. And then everyone's going to say, no, it has nothing to do with the weight cut. It has nothing to do with the weight cut. Tony's a wrestler. Tony cuts weight. Tony's cut weight his whole life. And that's what Chael told me. And I'm like, Chael, son, look, here's the thing. He cut weight his whole life and wrestled other guys that cut weight also. But Justin conserved himself, while Tony, for no reason, drained himself 2 weeks out from the fight to make weight. So if you think that didn't have anything to do with it, I'm no scientist or anything like that, but I'm going to say that the weight cut probably had something to do with it. All right, let's recap now. Oh, man, this was hard to watch. We're gonna talk about Anthony Smith and Glover Teixeira, but I'm going to get to the bottom of the card first. Chase Sherman coming back looked very good against Isaac Villanueva. I think Villanueva was a light heavyweight coming up, but just the same, good for Chase. He had a rough patch, I guess, out of the UFC, but he came back. It looked good. I think it was a bit down on his luck. He had some medical issues and whatnot, and he did very well outside the UFC. So I think it was 3 straight first round TKOs in a row in other organizations. Welcome back, Chase Sherman. Okay, here I go. Moises against Michael Johnson. I picked Michael Johnson to win. It looked like everything was going my way. First round, Michael Johnson was a world beater, and then Michael Johnson does what Michael Johnson does and gets caught in something crazy in the later rounds. This was the second round, that heel hook. So, ouch. I thought Philip Lins was going to beat Andrei Arlovski. I was wrong there. Andre came back with a unanimous decision. Just a reminder, if you are on the Periscope, feel free to say hi and chime in, make a comment or whatnot. Ricky Simone defeats Ray Borg. I think they got that one right. It was a split decision. I think it was a split decision. Ricky Simone without the mullet, defeating Ray Borg. Listen, there's going to be calls for him going back down to 125 pounds, Ray Borg, that is, but he can't make that weight. I thought he looked just fine at 135 pounds. Instead of planning later to go back to 125, why shouldn't he just build himself up to 135 and be done with it? Like I said, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a weight cutting specialist. I'm not the great Mike Dolce, as it were. So let's look here. Drew Dober and Alexander Hernandez. So Drew Dober, I don't ever give this guy his due. I thought Alexander Hernandez would come back, and Drew Dober just, golly, knocked him silly in round 2, to the point where they had to stop the fight. So I think Drew is a real up-and-comer. Why don't we want to see I'd like to see a Drew Dober and maybe a Dan Hooker. Why not? Or, he did call for Al Quinta before. Why not Al come back? Yeah. Oh, man, this heavyweight fight between Ben Rothwell of In-State Peru, before everyone yells for him to go back down to light heavyweight, OSP that is, Rothwell said he belonged there, and I believe he did too. And when I picked this fight, I picked Ben Rothwell to win, not so much because of skill and size or anything else, really. It was because OSP has been fighting light heavyweights, 205 pounders, and Rothwell did the right thing. He leaned on him, he grinded on him, he made him tired, he made OSP really feel that weight, and that wore him down a little bit. It was a split decision. I do believe it was the right one, though. I do believe Ben did win that fight. So yeah, and I hope OSP comes back and he's used to this heavyweight thing, and I think he will. He'll get used to it. You just don't know until you know. You got Ben Rothwell weighing every bit of 165 pounds, so I like OSP at heavyweight, and I hope he sticks with it. And I really hope we see something from him, at that weight class. Glover Teixeira, Anthony Smith. Okay, Anthony Smith looked like Anthony Smith in round 1. I picked Anthony Smith to win this. I even said to myself, I didn't, even though he did have a title fight against John Jones, I did not take him seriously until that Alexander Gustafsson fight, where he really pulled off that submission. And then it looked like I was right. Round 1, I thought Anthony Smith was the world beater. Then round 2 comes along, toward the end. Glover starts gaining on him. And then round 3 comes along, and Glover starts pummeling him. And then round 4. And I didn't think it should have went to a round 5. I even heard John Halkelman say, he was on the other side. He was Glover's coach. Had it been his fighter, he would have stopped that in its tracks. So, yeah, that's hard. That's tough to say. I don't know what these guys do or don't do, but I think it should have been stopped. I don't know. You might not be the same after that fight. It's kind of like Ngannou wasn't quite the same after that first Stipe fight for 2 fights, and then all of a sudden he came back. I think Anthony Smith's going to have a little bit of adjustment period. He just had something traumatic happen in his life. Someone broke into his house, and that was a full-on fight apparently, and the guy was kind of a credentialed wrestler, probably on the happy stuff, the drugs or whatnot, and Anthony, it was a real fight. And so, I don't know. And on top of that, add the empty arena, and I'm not just saying that, because everyone had to fight in the infantry. Sure, I get it, but Anthony Smith had a little bit of extra baggage coming into that fight, and I wish they would have stopped it. The guy got his teeth knocked out. He got his bell rung. And, Glover, if you found the Fountain of Youth here, share it with us. Share the Fountain of Youth with us, please, because you look great, my friend. You really, really did. Okay, next up. Oh, yes. Saturday's fight card. Alistair Overeem versus Walt Harris. Walt Harris coming off this tragic thing with his daughter recently. Anaya, found dead on her way back to college. That hit close home to me because I have a 20-year-old daughter. My daughter's a year older than his. Same deal. She goes back and forth to college. I worry about her all the time. Goodness, and to deal with that, I can't imagine. And here he was coming at this fight. I didn't like this fight for him, mainly because Alistair's skill level is crazy good, and we saw what happened when Walt Harris went up against a real grappler like Verdun. Verdun just ran through him, and I realized, he wasn't expecting to fight Verdun as a short notice replacement and whatnot, but still, there's levels to this game, and I just thought that Alistair was a great grappler, and unless Walt Harris got him out of there, which he almost did in the first round, it was going to be a real, long night for Walt, and it was, and he flattened him out. He grappled him. He flattened him out. Alistair did, after almost getting put out in the first, stayed patient, and got the job done, and at the end of the game, at the end of the day, it's the fight game. So you can't really fault him for that. And, he was respectful as hell afterwards. He offered to train with him and this and that. But it is what it is. I went to the top of this card instead of the bottom, so let me start lower now. I kind of blew my wad there with Overeem and Harris, but I just think of my daughter, and that just came first to mind. It really did. Miguel Baeza versus Matt Brown. Didn't see that coming. I thought Matt was going to do it. Matt got starched in round 2. Song Yadong, Marlon Vera. I think that was the real robbery here. Song Yadong, I think they were both at 145 pounds. They're usually at 135. I didn't think Song Yadong won that fight. I think he's overrated. Clearly, he's one of Uriah's prodigies and whatnot. And I know Jocko, Eric Anders, I did think Jocko won that. Obviously, he did. Eric Anders, I think he's just got some things he's got to work on to be a complete mixed martial artist. Big fan of Danny Ige, Edson Barboza. I didn't come away from that fight saying, yeah, Edson won it, and Ige got the decision. And, I think it may have been the right one. I'm if I'm going to be honest. So, and then that Claudia Gagelia, Angela Hill, I did think Angela did win that fight. But, I'm not a judge. I thought she won that fight. We'll see. And it looks like next week is May 30th. And next week, I think we get Tyron Woodley, Gilbert Burns, location to be determined. Anyone on the Periscope, this is your last shot to comment. And if not, I am out of here until next week. So, shalom.
Please remember to support the podcast by visiting the affiliate links on AaronSaysWhat.com.